I am live now. Let's see. Yeah, looks like it. All right. Just going to wait for a couple people to filter in here so we can go ahead and get started on this and talk a little bit about this, because as you can read from the title, I just saw the Joker movie with my wife. Hey, what's up, Devil Hunter Nero? What is up, buddy? This is going to be probably going to go maybe about an hour and a half, so that probably up until the point where Nick streams. Hey, what's up? Not a bug. What's up? If for those of you out there, yeah, if you could share the stream, I tweeted it out. Would appreciate it, so you get some more people in here and have a little bit of a discussion, because I just saw the Joker movie and I have a couple things to say about it. Now, I'm not gonna spoil anything, because I know probably not everyone here has seen the movie yet. So I'm gonna do my very best not to spoil anything at all about it. But there's things that I did want to discuss about it, because I thought, man, I liked it. First off, let me just say I liked the movie. I liked it very much. I thought it was good. And I think that Todd Phillips, the director, I believe that's his name, Todd Phillips, the director's intent, I think definitely what he intended for the movie to be and the way he wanted it to come across, I believe definitely did in this movie. If I had to, you just finished watching it, Chronos. So, man, I mean, I thought it was good. I mean, it's probably going to be, I will say this, is probably, depending on what your expectations are, it might be a little bit slow paced. What I will say about the movie overall is that it's not really a superhero movie. It really isn't. That's just something that it's dressed up in a little bit. I guess you could say the whole idea of the Joker is definitely more of, the fact that it's tied in that way was, I think, more of a way to kind of market the movie and get more attention for it. But and there is some elements of it that are true to the story of, of what we know, right, about the Joker, or some of the stories that have been put out there. So, hey, yeah, you finally caught me live. Not a bug. Thanks for being here, man. Any references? Yeah. Scarlet Rider, there's definitely a lot of references. There's a couple of Easter eggs in it, but not too many. This is a movie that really is, I think, what Todd Phillips intended it to be, and that is a kind of commentary, or at least I think one of the things he said about the movie is that it's really more of a study on mental illness. And I would think he definitely, that's for sure one thing that he definitely got right in this movie, for sure. In my opinion, that it came across in this movie, for sure. So anybody that's expecting this movie to be one that is a whole lot of action, I will say this is not really that. So, but it's a good movie. It is a good movie. It is absolutely worth watching. And I think it adds a lot more layers, I think. I mean, we already seen some people that have played Joker really well, right? When we talk about Heath Ledger, a lot of people, that's probably the most revered Joker performance. Man, I think Joaquin Phoenix not only gives him a run for his money, he might have surpassed that. I mean, Joaquin Phoenix as an actor, I think, has always been a fantastic actor, in my opinion. To me, he really kind of turned the corner, in my opinion, with Walk the Line. That, to me, is where he kind of really broke out and kind of showed that he could be a real heavy-hitting actor, and showed a lot of range. I mean, I think in this, he went beyond that. He went beyond what we probably already knew about him. I mean, he's done some great work over the last several years that maybe hasn't been talked about as much, but yeah, a little bit. Devil Hunter Nero, in a sense. This is kind of loosely, this whole movie has elements of The Killing Joke. I don't know if you've ever read The Killing Joke, but it draws from some elements. It does have a couple of things that it does that are a little bit original, but in The Killing Joke, it kind of talks about Joker's backstory as being kind of this guy that was a struggling comedian that, had some circumstances, some beyond his control that befell him and kind of got pushed over the edge. In some ways, it still parallels that, because you see points where he is, where he's kind of pushed over the edge. But a lot of this, I think there's a couple commentaries here, not just about what mental illness can do to people, but also there is a little bit of commentary on the movie about how society, or maybe certain social programs, could probably do more, I think, to a lesser extent. And it also does something that I found to be very interesting, in that it also shows what happens when people prop up the wrong people as well. Let's see, Not a Bug saying, so you saw it and yet you haven't committed. No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. And I don't think, and that's another thing too, I think all the critics that were saying how this would radicalize people, none of that in this movie. None of that in this movie. And I think, Carano, you've seen it, so I think you could probably agree with me on that point. I don't see how you look at this movie and you think that it's going to be something that somebody's going to, I mean, unless, like I said, unless that person is just as mentally ill, because it's very clear that the one thing that we saw, right, established with Heath Ledger's Joker that was kind of said. I mean, we already knew this about Joker if you've been a long time comic book reader, but it's something that is actually spoken in The Dark Knight. And that's the part where Heath Ledger as Joker talks about kind of being this agent of chaos. Well, that's kind of more reaffirmed with this movie. And you really get to see it in play, you know, and you see why it is that he becomes this kind of agent of chaos in this movie. So to be, they expand upon it a lot more in the movie. Let's see. Scarlet Rider says, it's ironic. The Aurora, Colorado, who the one the media keeps hearkening back to for this movie was even dressed. Yeah. Like I said, they're just looking to take this movie, and because of the fact that Todd Phillips didn't walk in line. Thank you, Not a Bug, for that. Appreciate it. No comment yet, but this is just thank you. I appreciate it, buddy. Always helps. There is this movie came out at the right time, I think, and I think it's going to do very well. I also think that you know, the media that was trying to paint it as a certain way, right? Oh, it's this movie of, you know, that incels are going to watch and get radicalized by. I don't see it at all. I honestly don't see that at all. I mean, anybody that does, I would think, would be super, super weak-minded. I think it's just more of a commentary about the effects of mental illness to a degree. Yes, there is scenes in the movie where you empathize with the Joker, right? And you even sympathize with him to some instances. But then you realize also, though, there's a degree of sanity, even though it might be very fleeting, right? There's a certain degree of sanity where you realize, okay, there's still a point in time where he's making a conscious choice to do these horrible things. Yes, a lot of it is because of the issues he has, but at the same time, it's like, this is not a movie where I felt where you're really glorifying the things he does. And I think that's part of what some of the argument was, right? With some of these people talking about this movie where they were trying to make it seem like, oh, this is going to glorify, you know, the acts of a villain and things like that. Not really. I didn't see that at all, because you see all this stuff happening and you still want to see this guy be put away for the things he's doing. You don't want somebody like this roaming free. I didn't find myself seeing despite all the stuff that you see him go through, right? That you could empathize with, that you could sympathize with. There was never a point that I felt like watching this movie where I was just like, I'm rooting for him. I'm rooting for the good guy. It's more like you want to see, you feel this compassion of, yeah, you would like to see him get the help, but at the same time, I'm not rooting for him. You know, he's not a hero at all, you know, and you do see the things where it's just like, okay, you know, a lot of the things that are said to him throughout the course of the movie, you know, end up being right, things that you agree with, in the sense of, you know, why he's bad, right? So So Kamikaze, you saw it last night. Yeah, it's good. It's a good movie. It is good. Do you think that Joaquin Phoenix? I think this is, as far as I know, this is a one and done deal. But I think that when this movie, when more people have watched it and have weighed in on it, I think that that's something that they should consider. I mean, I think he would be a great Joker in other movies, but I think the whole intent with this one was pretty much a one and done deal. As a standalone lead, I don't know. It's hard to say Scarlet Rider, because the thing is, you don't see him really play off of anybody much in this movie. I mean, there's the acting in it was great and all that, but there are some things that you look at that are a little bit, of course, a little bit exaggerated, right? You wouldn't expect those things to happen really in real life, but and some things seem probably a little bit over the top and extreme. But again, this is fiction. This is also based on a comic book character, so I think it's safe to take those kind of liberties and put these kind of extreme situations together for a character like that, because it is not real. So I don't know how he would play off of other people. I don't think that it would be bad. I mean, I think I wouldn't mind seeing how it is that he would play off of another person playing Batman, though, for sure. That would definitely answer that question. So with clowns and red balloons just to get people. Yeah. I remember when that was going on. I think it would be interesting to see Batman's backstory from the perspective of Joaquin's Joker in a sequel with Batman as an antagonist. Yeah. And the thing is, there's stuff, See the Wave? I mean, there's stuff that's established in this movie to kind of again, I'm trying my best to word this right so that there's no spoilers. I really don't want to reveal anything about this movie, because this is something that I think people should watch for sure. If you're a fan of Batman, of course, but also it's just it's a good movie. It's just overall a good movie. If this didn't have the Joker as being put on there, it still would have been a good movie. Like, even absent of the Joker theme on it, it would have been a good movie, because really it really isn't a superhero movie. It really is a movie about the pitfalls of or I shouldn't say the pitfalls, but it definitely is something that brings up these discussions, right? About mental illness, how it could potentially be hereditary, how it could be something that there's definitely a topical discussion to be had about this, where you could talk about whether it's nature versus nurture and vice versa, because there's certain instances, there's things that you find out in this movie where you're just like, okay, is that because of the fact that it's something that it's inherent, or is it really because of these circumstances that this person grew up in and things like that? So it definitely it explores all these different areas that people think about when we look at mental illness. Cop out. So with some trite, lame event is the psych. I think it's believable to a degree. I mean, I'm not going to front with you, not a bug. Of course, there is some certain instances in the movie, I think, that are probably, of course, grossly exaggerated, like where you look at it and you say, that's a little extreme. I don't think I would ever see that happening in real life, but you never know. You never know. I don't think it's too far outside the realm of possibility, but I'm sure there's certain things that they play up a lot more, again, like I said, because of the fact that it is a fictional, it's a fictional story. So See the Wave says, does it have elements, traces of all past Jokers and TV? I think a little bit, but I really feel that, and it's crazy because when you look at all the people that have played Joker, you can probably see different inspirations, right? Like with Jack Nicholson, probably people can look at Jack Nicholson's Joker and think of, okay, well, I could see where he might have drawn from Cesar Romero, right? In his portrayal of it. And maybe with Heath Ledger playing the Joker, you see where he might have drawn inspiration from both Jack Nicholson and Cesar Romero, maybe. But he did something to really kind of break out on his own and do a different kind of Joker that was much more, it wasn't as familiar as, say, like how you can relate the Jack Nicholson Joker to the Cesar Romero one, right? Those are probably a little bit closer to being similar. His was the most dissimilar from the previous incarnations. And what's interesting is that this one, people will probably say it's kind of similar to that Heath Ledger type of Joker, but it's, to me, it's dissimilar enough where it really kind of stands on its own, where he's kind of taken Joker in a different kind of direction as well. So I thought it was great. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some nominations for his performance in this movie. So because he showed a lot of that range that he has in this movie, I believe. So Bowsette says, all I want to know is how woke is it? I don't think it's woke at all. There was no woke elements that I saw at all in this movie. I mean, one could probably argue that, that it's making a commentary about how maybe, local governments and things like that don't pay enough attention to the mentally ill or do enough to help them. I think there's a little bit of a commentary on that in this movie. But I don't think that it's necessarily a woke message at all. There's nothing that I saw. There's no elements that I saw in the movie at all that I could look at and say, okay, they're definitely beating that social justice drum here. I don't think so at all. I mean, these are things that of course have been concerns for like decades, right? When they talk about how certain people haven't gotten all the care that they needed when it came to these issues. So there was no wokeness at all that I saw in this movie. And I think that's probably, again, that's probably what's going to piss a lot of these so-called journalists off about this movie, these so-called movie critics that are woke. So let's see. Mark Hamill still one of the best jokes. Yeah. And I mean, what's interesting about Joaquin Phoenix's laugh as the Joker is that it's kind of goofy. It's almost, it is to that point of being somewhat cartoony, but it's different. It's different. And it's one of those laughs that, you could laugh at it, but you also can see how creepy it is and how kind of unnerving it is a little bit too at certain points that he does it in the film. There's certain points, at least for me, because I watched it with my wife and she liked it too. But there was points in the movie where I was watching it and it's just like, I laughed at and chuckled at some of the way he laughed, but there's certain points where it's almost unnerving and even a little bit, it's that kind of laugh that after a while it gets uncomfortable, right? So it definitely elicited that. And I'm not saying that I was necessarily uncomfortable watching a movie from that, but I saw that was, that's where it was going, where it's just kind of like, it gets to that point of being that unnerving. So it was good. So no mustache like Cesar Romero. No mustache like Cesar Romero. I appreciate you, Smunkin. Thank you. Thank you for stopping by, even if it's only for a little bit. Yeah, there's a lot of depth in this movie. Absolutely. Absolutely. I think Todd Phillips, what he set out to do is what he did in this movie. He delivered on that. What he set out to do, he absolutely delivered on, in my opinion. He absolutely delivered on that. And I think that's the best thing. That's the best thing about it. And that's what makes it worth watching. So almost it's not woke at all, Bowsette. Yeah. How long is it? It's a little over 2 hours. It's actually not that long. I mean, there's certain parts where you might feel that it's a little bit slow, but you're engaged in the story because of there's a lot, of introspective stuff that's happening, right? So there's a lot of times where, you just see, it's almost like just watching, you're watching a descent into madness slowly over the course of these 2.5 hours, because there's certain points where you're just watching Joaquin's portrayal of the Joker and seeing you're seeing the cracks, the cracks, the picking at him, and you see that slow, the slow, how should I say, you just kind of see him kind of going, starting to break throughout the course of the movie. And what were you saying about it? The police, the police that everyone. Oh yeah. There's definitely there's a little bit of a commentary. My wife just reminded me of something, that there's a commentary. Yeah, a little bit about probably of people's probably there's a little bit of a commentary maybe about how people view the wealthy, I guess you could say. But the thing about it is that there's good. It's not a thing of that Todd Phillips is trying to say, oh, wealthy and rich people are bad. That's not the message in this movie at all. But it shows kind of the how people are disillusioned, right, with society a little bit, and that people feel like they want more, or they need more, and things like that. And the police, yeah. So it's interesting. It like I said, it's not. I don't feel that it's woke at all. Yeah, kamikaze. I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah, exactly. And that's the interesting thing about his laugh too, is that again he conveyed a lot of different emotions with the same laugh. You know what I mean? With that same laugh, that same inflection, same tone every time, but you could tell that there was something different going on, right? So it was great. So does he struggle or just go all in? There's definitely a bit of a struggle. There's a bit of a struggle there within himself. But there's a point where it's like it's all a boiling point. I mean, you see it from the beginning, right? There's these points, and it's progressively. Again, it's a descent. I shouldn't be going up. I should be going down, because it's really a descent into madness. You know what I mean? Because there's issues there. Obviously, there's deep-rooted issues, and then there's these revelations that he goes through that just he finds out things that continuously just push him over the edge, to a point where he just feels like, this is it. This is what he has to do. He has no other recourse but to go on and do these things. So, my wife was mentioning something else too, was that there's odd, like, comedic moments, right? So it's kind of like you're seeing, you really do see, you really are seeing the world a little bit through his eyes, but you're also seeing it from a third person perspective as well. So it's an interesting movie. Yeah, Arkham Asylum. I believe they actually call it, I think, Arkham Mental Hospital. Was it Arkham Mental Hospital? You remember? Yeah, they don't actually call it Arkham Asylum in this. They call it Arkham, I believe, Mental Hospital or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it is in this movie. Yeah, exactly. Like, he's just, it's great. It's a great movie. Like I said, it's one that I definitely recommend for anybody to watch. It's not woke at all, not even in the slightest, in my opinion. And even the people, I think, that are out there trying to say stuff about it, they really should have just waited to see the movie, because I think even some of them might recant some of the things that they previously thought about it, if they're honest. If not, they're probably going to continue to be intellectually dishonest about it and say that, oh, this is a movie that's going to radicalize people. Not at all. I don't see that at all. One thing that happens, and I don't think that I'm spoiling anything by saying this is probably, I guess, the only close thing to spoiling I'll be saying, but this is in the previews. So I'm sure you all realize that there's a certain point in time where there's people with Joker masks and things like that, and there's signs, and they're talking about a revolution and things like that. What was very interesting to me about that was, and what that said to me about, what it got to that particular point in time in the movie was, I paralleled it with the way people revere a guy like Che Guevara, right? When I see people that wear like Che Guevara shirts, or have high praise about a guy like Che Guevara, I realize that they probably don't really know what Che Guevara did. Che Guevara was a piece of garbage. You know what I mean? Che Guevara was a murderer. He was scum. You know what I mean? He was not, the world better place without a guy like Che Guevara in it, right? He was not this, they prop him up on this pedestal of being like this great revolutionary with a vision and things like that, and he was not. He was none of those things. He was a horrible human being, and the way people make it seem like that he was, he had these great goals and things like that, and it's kind of like the way people praise Pablo Escobar, put him on this pedestal, and no, these were not good men. These were not good men. And it kind of says a little bit of something of how people take and they look at somebody as this symbol and as this figure for this kind of what they want to perceive as positive change. And they prop them up on this pedestal when really, the person that they are glorifying, this person that they're putting on this pedestal is not that great person. You know what I mean? And that person that they believe in, that they think is this big symbol of change, is none of those things. They're just evil. They're just pure evil. So it kind of, there's a little bit of that that's being talked about in this movie as well, which I thought was interesting. Oh man, I don't know, Crow. I don't know, bud. I don't know. Yeah, I had to fight him all the way through the just from getting into the theater and getting out of the theater. So yeah, I am lucky to be alive. Yeah. Bowsette, I mean, well, don't just take my word for it. It's really one of those things of you should check it out and really decide for yourself. Because what I would say is just don't believe what the show media is trying to sell you on it. Don't believe in what they're saying about it, because no, none of that is in this movie. At least not the way I perceived it, the way I saw it. I mean, in my opinion, I thought it was great. Yeah. Basically, not a bug. That's a pretty good way to put it. I would say that's a very fair analogy. People will probably look at this. There's certain people that will probably look at it and say that, oh, they're glorifying, the bad things that he does in this movie, and they're making him this hero, right? This kind of like this kind of hero of the people and things like that, when really that's not what's going on. If you look past everything, right, that's not what's happening here. You know what I mean? It just goes to show how easily people are, how easily people fool themselves into thinking the best about a person that is obviously bad, when they refuse to, when they're being intellectually dishonest, and they refuse to really call a spade a spade. So yeah, I believe it. Yeah, it's definitely worth watching. It's definitely worth the money I spent at the theater. I had no regrets at all. My wife and I enjoyed it very much. It was definitely worth watching. It was just, and nooses. Yeah. You'll like it too, Crow. I think you'll like it too. I mean, I thought it was brilliant, like I said. And I'll say again, Todd Phillips, he definitely knocked out of the park here. So it was worth every penny. Worth every penny. So go check out The Joker. That's really I guess the main point of this little discussion video I'm doing here. Definitely check it out. Yeah, you'll like it. I think you'll like it. You'll understand what's in it. You know what I mean? That there's not any of that other stuff going on that people were worried about, and how this is going to somehow radicalize incels to do these horrible things, and is going to serve as some kind of propaganda piece, I guess, for incels to use to become radicalized and go out and do horrible things. Yeah, go watch it as soon as you can, Devil Hunter. I think you'll like it. So, but Tim Pool was saying it was more like, to a degree, I guess I could see where he would say that. Especially you get into more of that stuff more towards the end of the movie. But again, it's not. It's definitely there's a commentary going on about a bunch of different things in the movie, and all of which are fascinating, and all of which are kind of done from a couple different perspectives, which I appreciated. So it's a movie I think that's really meant to start more of a discussion than anything else. Yeah, I've heard mixed things about that, Jesus Saros. Yeah, no, there's no, yeah, there's that to me, that argument falls completely flat. I didn't see any of that in this movie. I think that's silly. I think that's probably the most baseless thing I've seen said about the movie, is how that it's gonna work as some kind of propaganda piece to radicalize incels to do like these horrible things. Yeah, no, not at all. I don't think so. Hey, what's up, Donnie Pearson? No, man, you're good. You're good. You're good, buddy. Oh, nice. Nice. Very cool. Very cool. Didn't even know you were a football fan. But nah, yeah, we're just sitting here talking about the Joker. I just saw it with my wife, and I just wanted to talk about it a little bit, do a little bit of a discussion, but not spoil anything. Wanted to just kind of talk about it kind of generally. Yeah. Yeah, that's a fair way to put it. Scarlet Rider. Oh, okay, I got you. I got you. Well, as long as you watch it, man, I mean, I think you'll enjoy it. Whether you watch it now or later, I would say if you're about going to the movie theater, if you like going to the movie theater, it's definitely one to catch in the theater if you're able to go catch it in the theater. But if not, yeah, just give it a watch. It's good. It's good stuff. But yeah, since I have you all here, yeah, we could talk about other stuff too outside of the movie. But feel free to ask me anything about the movie. I'll do my best not to spoil anything, though. That's one thing I will do is kind of stay away from spoilers, just for the sake of everyone else in the chat. So I don't think so. Scarlet Rider, I'm not sure. I'm not sure because there's not, like I said, there's not any of what they were trying to say about it in this movie, at least none that I saw. So, like I said, any of those arguments, if that was the base argument for people to try to deter people from watching the movie, again, this is why you should watch, why people should watch the movie first. Yeah, there's none of that I saw in this movie. I'm just like, I don't know where they can really argue that. I mean, I guess I could maybe, if I squint a little, I could probably make an argument, make their argument for them, but even still, it's none of that. It's a very intellectually dishonest. Have I hacked the PS Mini? Not yet, but I should. I heard it's much better when you do that. So Manny knows how to do it. He actually hacked his PS Mini, and I'll probably end up having him do that for mine. So he's got like, I think like almost like 100, and he's got like 150 or 160 games on it since he hacked it. So yeah, I might do it. So. While the military studied CQC, CQB, and advanced tactics, I studied the blade. Insult. That's good. That's good, Kamakage. Yeah, it's just fun. It's just it was just a fun movie in the sense, not because of like, that I appreciate any of the violence, the horrible things they did, and it's just that it's good. It's good. I thought it was a good movie. So one of the best movies I've seen in a bit. So like I said, but I'm just trying to like manage any expectations y'all might have for it. Like I said, don't expect a whole lot of like this nonstop action, things like that. So that's one thing I will say, but it is a fascinating movie. It's very fascinating to me. It kept my interest the entire time. There was never a point in time where I felt, watching the movie that it got really super boring or anything like that. It had its moments where they did have some funny things happen, of course, to break up any kind of monotony that the movie would have probably had under different circumstances. But it was, everything was paced very well. And to me, watching it, I didn't feel like it was a long movie. I mean, it's just over 2 hours, but like you don't feel any of those at least I didn't feel like that it dragged, right? Watching the movie, because there's certain movies that you'll watch and you'll feel how long they are. If you guys know what I mean by that. like for example, I guess the best example I could say is Lord of the Rings, right? The first movie, The Fellowship of the Ring. When I watched that movie, that's like a 3 hour, I think like a 3 hour plus movie. And I remember the first time I watched it, I didn't feel those 3 hours at all. Those 3 hours went by relatively quick, in my opinion. I didn't feel the 3 hours. Now the Two Towers, when I watched the Two Towers, I felt it. That one I did feel, even though the most action is at the end of the movie. Me watching that movie, I felt those 3 hours for whatever reason. I don't know why, but it's crazy because when you think about it, it seems like the Two Towers has much more action than the Fellowship of the Ring did. But the Fellowship of the Ring didn't feel long to me. The Two Towers did, for whatever reason. Of all those movies, that one feels the longest to me, that I could actually, I feel the 3 hours when I watch it. So some people didn't like Operation Overdrive. Yeah, a lot of people didn't like it. A lot of people still think that it's probably the worst season, I think it's up for debate now thanks to Megaforce, but it's going to be funny when a lot of the commentators have to eat crow in regards to this film. I think so. I think that's going to happen. I really do. I think there's going to be some of the people that might have gotten a little ahead of themselves and jumped the gun, and their initial judgment of the movie might have to walk it back after they actually watch it. But we'll see. Maybe they'll double down and stick to their guns on it. You felt it with Aquaman? I thought Aquaman was fine. I didn't feel it with Aquaman. Earlier Maskman is all right. Maskman is pretty good. But yeah, I didn't feel at all with this movie. It's just a little over 2 hours, I believe, and I didn't feel it. I didn't feel it in this movie. Like I said, the pacing was fine. Everything was fine. I think everything just hit on just right. So the acting, everything. Yeah. I think that's what it was for me too. And it really, man, by the time that, like, I almost fell asleep. And I saw, like, all the Lord of the Ring movies, I saw them in the theater. I think the only one I didn't was Return of the King. But, like, Fellowship and Two Towers, I saw those opening day back when they came out. And I remember I loved Fellowship of the Ring. I thought it was great. I thought it was paced fine. Like, I didn't feel those 3 hours. But when I saw the Two Towers, I was just like, oh, my gosh, this movie needs to end. It just dragged and dragged and dragged and dragged. And then the excitement happens at the end of the movie when they finally have the battle. But it's... it's just like the stuff that you have to sludge through to get to that point. At least for me, I was just like, just finish. The Middle of Two Towers. Not a Bug says, when I read those books in the 70s, everyone I read is one. You read in one night. Oh, it took you a week. Yeah, I guess it just doesn't translate over well. What do you think about Disney dropping? Oh, did they? Did they? Are they going to, or is that just rumor? Because I thought she had a contract. People think that the Star Wars movies are long. Yeah, no, I mean the Star Wars movies I don't think are too long. But yeah, that sounds like rumor. I mean, if they did do it, I mean, I don't. If they did do that, I think that most people wouldn't care, except for the people that are diehard Brie Larson fans. They would probably care. But I think overall, I think that's something people would get over relatively quickly. So, yeah, I don't think that's something that people would be too up in arms about, honestly, if, after the fact. I mean, like I said, only the diehard Brie Larson fans, or maybe a few casuals, but I think all in all, people probably wouldn't care all that much. Yeah, well, that's probably why they came to that agreement, because they know that she's not going to be able to, like, she can't stand alone. Like, she's not going to be. They really can't. She's not likable enough, and the character of Captain Marvel is not a good enough character. The way that she's been written is not a good enough character to sustain the next phase of the MCU, and they know that. That's why. See, like, if it was like the way she was when she was Miss Marvel, then maybe, because she was a lot more likable, a lot more relatable when she was like Ms. Marvel. If that was still the same character, I think that they might have a better chance. But look, Spider-Man is an institution, right? Spider-Man was the flagship character for Marvel for decades. So Spider-Man, you could really build the rest of the MCU around him. A lot of things. You could do like what you did with the Spider-Man cartoon. For those of you that are here in the chat, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. If you remember the Spider-Man animated series from the 1990s, they showed aspects of Spider-Man that they explored aspects of Spider-Man that we see sometimes in the comics, but not too often, right? Like, for example, like the way that they built the whole Secret Wars storyline around him, right? And him kind of being the leader. That was a new dynamic that they kind of added to Spider-Man throughout the course of that series that was very interesting to explore. You could do that, I think, with a guy like Tom Holland, where you could have the MCU be something that's kind of a coming of age for him, right? You see this kid literally grow up from being a boy to a man throughout the course of these movies. So hopefully they've only come, I think, to a 2-movie deal with Tom Holland for him and the MCU moving forward. But I hope they reconsider that and they shift focus and try to really build things around him, because I think as a leader, especially, you could see some cool things happen there, right? Where he kind of grows into that role of maybe even being a leader. So especially when you think about how they're trying to make him almost the successor in some ways to Iron Man. I think that would be an interesting thing to explore with him with movies. Crow, it was good, man. It was good. It was good, buddy. Or is that Dean? Is that you? Is that you, Dean? Let's see. What the juice? All right, take care, Jesus Eros. Appreciate you. All right. Didn't they take down a poll between Captain Marvel and Wonder Woman and win people? Oh yeah, well, that's not even a fair contest. You can't. Yeah, if you put Wonder Woman against Captain Marvel, Wonder Woman's gonna win every time, twice on Sunday. It's not even fair. It's not even a fair fight. Yeah, Donnie Pearson. Yeah. Oh man, yeah. The intro to X-Men, yeah, it was fantastic. The intro to Spider-Man was good too, but the X-Men one is probably a little bit more memorable to people. Because it probably the one for Spider-Man is probably more of an acquired taste. Yeah, I saw Far From Home not too long ago. I thought it was good. It was decent. I mean, not great. It was all right. So you watched the 1960s animated series in glorious 7 frames per second. I've seen some of the 1960s stuff. The Spider-Man does whatever a spider can. Yeah, I've seen some of those. Have the movies of Spider-Man. I love the early movies. I have my favorite one is still Spider-Man 2. Toby all day. Moon Knight, She-Hulk is getting their own TV show. Really? I didn't hear about that. I heard about Moon Knight. I didn't know about She-Hulk, Jeremy. Speaking of soups, I hope the J.J. Abrams Helm movie would be a direct sequel to either 1970. Well, didn't they recast? Aren't they going to recast the role of Superman? Didn't they say that this guy's out, Henry Cavill? I believe he's out. They're not gonna do any more movies with him. Holland Hardy Spidey versus Venom would be amazing. Yeah, it would be cool. That would be cool to see. We'll see how they incorporate all that. If they're going to incorporate Venom, if that's all going to be a part of the same universe. The March of Siamese Children from the Rodgers and Hammersteins, The King and I. Yeah, Moon Knight. Man, Moon Knight's a great. Oh, he quit. Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know Henry Cavill had quit. Oh, that's too bad. I mean, to me, out of all the people that have played Superman, I thought that he actually, like, in terms of physical appearance, was probably the most spot on. I mean, super jacked, like shaped, right? Shaped the way the Superman's supposed to be shaped with the, that big upper body. And the chin too. He had that kind of protruding chin, that square jaw that we always see with Superman. I thought he was great. We have the March of the Siamese Children. Okay. Hey, what's going on? Gotcha, son. What's up? Welcome to the chat, buddy. Appreciate you being here. What do you think of the Superman curse? I've heard of that, but really only two people I've really fell to it, and that was George Reeve and Christopher Reeves, right? They both, Christopher Reeves. The stuff surrounding George Reeve, I think, was that they're still, it was ruled a suicide, but they feel that there could have been some foul play because of how for those of you that don't know in the chat, they feel that there could have been some foul play involved, that it might have actually been a hit from the mafia because of the way that the bullet casing fell under his body. They said that if from the way that he committed suicide, it shouldn't have been possible for the bullet casing for him to be able to fall on the bullet casing. That basically the bullet casing should have flown in the opposite direction of how he shot himself, but somehow ended up under his body. So people think that it's possible that he could have been assassinated, and it was, the crime scene was staged to make it look like a suicide. So one of Hollywood's mysteries, right? So Unjog Joaquin, I'm off to the dentist. All righty, buddy. Thank you for being on. Yeah, Henry did look the best. Glad to be off work. Good, man. Yeah, kick up your feet, enjoy yourself. Relax for a little bit. Just streaming a little bit before Ricada does his stream, because I think he's doing his stream at midnight tonight, right? He'll be doing his stream at midnight tonight. So we'll see if we can go up until the point where he's about to start his stream, or maybe I'll end a half hour early. Yeah, I know his career hadn't gone that well. I know that Superman was the thing that kind of breathed fresh air into his career. I believe that was the one thing that revitalized his career, because prior to that he was struggling, and that became his most iconic role, the thing that he unfortunately ended up being typecasted by. So, oh man, any movies I'm looking forward to? Well, I was looking forward to this one. The next one I'm looking forward to seeing is Rambo: Last Blood. I haven't seen it yet. That's the next one that I want to watch. But this was the one that I was looking forward to in terms of the rest of this year. Was for sure this movie. After I saw it initially, when I saw the preview, I wasn't too sure about it. Then when the next trailer came out, that kind of convinced me a little bit more to watch it. After I saw the second trailer, it fascinated me more, because I wasn't too impressed with the first one. I was like, I don't know. And then when I saw the second trailer, I was like, okay, it seems a little bit more appealing. So, but no more this year. Rambo: Last Blood would be the next one. So, what do you think about Marvel's first Asian character they're going to be introduced? Which one is that? Because Marvel, Shang-Chi? You mean in the movies? I think you're referring to Shang-Chi, right? I know they're either going to make a Shang-Chi movie, or they're going to make a Shang-Chi TV series or something like that. But welcome to the stream, Charizard Ranger. Appreciate you being here as always showing the support. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you. Yeah, I think it's going to be a movie. Yeah, I think you're right. So not sure if this might sound kiddie. Anyway, is there any fans of the animated films, whether it be Disney or non-Disney, and hand-drawn or CGI or both? Hand-drawn, which Disney movies are you referring to? Are you talking about like just the Disney animated movies, Aladdin, Lion King, all that stuff? Or are you talking about just, just kind of generally all across the board? Or you, I see you said, yeah, non-Disney movies. I mean, I like a lot of different animated movies that were Disney and some not. Not a fan of the remake movies, though, so far. I think the only one that I think has been all right has been The Jungle Book. The rest of... I haven't seen the Lion King. I saw some of the Aladdin one. The Beauty and the Beast one didn't appeal to me at all. Saw some of Aladdin. Didn't care for it. Yeah, and Lion King, man, I'm not even sure. Until Zootopia 2. A lot of stuff. Okay. Yeah, I gotta see. I know that Marvel is doing Shang-Chi. They're doing something Shang-Chi. So we'll see what's up with that. We'll see what happens with that. But Shang-Chi's, yeah, he's been around for quite some time. I think I want to say maybe since the late 60s, 70s. I think that character's been around. Oh, okay. So Addams Family. Yeah, I don't think I'll be watching Addams Family. Felt they didn't matter with the CGI. Yeah, I don't even know if I want to bother with Lion King, to be honest with you. I mean, maybe let's see, but maybe just to check it out. But the Aladdin one, oof, not good, not good. Me and my wife got halfway through it, and she was like, "I'm done." I'm like, "Yep, me too." So, Terminator: Dark Fate. Man, I always try to give, like, I do the same thing with the with the Transformers movies that I do with the Terminator movies. But there comes a point where you got to like kind of stop, right? And you can't be about that no more. You got to stop the madness. Like with the Transformers movies, I always like held out hope that there might be something redeeming, but they just gradually kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse until the last point of last night. I was like, man, this movie has potential to be good. Like I want to think, right. I want to feel like, you know what, let me hold on to hope that this movie might actually do something differently, right, and change my mind. I'm trying to be positive about it, but then I watch it and it's just like, just let me down again. Just let me down again. And it's kind of like that with these newer Terminator movies as well. Like no matter how much I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, they always end up disappointing. Now the last one, there was some things that I did like about the last one, which was Genesis. There are some things that I did like about it, but ultimately, I mean, it's not a good movie. This one, hearing about Linda Hamilton coming back, I was just like, all right, that might be a good thing. But then, like when I saw the trailer, I was like, oh wow, she has not aged well at all. She looks really old, and she doesn't. They're trying to make it seem like she could still move, even being an older person, that she could still move well and things like that. But even in the trailer, like I felt like they were doing a lot of like, they're obviously doing a lot of camera stuff and they're doing a lot of things to make it seem like she's. I just don't buy it, right? I don't buy the fact that she's physically capable of doing the things that she's capable of doing. She just doesn't look it. With certain people, you could see them do things and they could convince you, but the thing is the way she hunches and everything. It's just she looks like an old woman. She looks like a grandma. I'm like, no, there's no degree of camera work that they're going to be able to do to convince me that she is as physically capable as they're trying to portray in this movie. She just has not aged well, in my opinion. But hey, who knows? I mean, it could end up being good. It could end up being good. So I guess we'll see. No way. No, they're doing a remake of West Side Story. Interesting. That's going to be interesting. I hope they don't do anything where they modernize it a lot, that they keep it they keep it true to the to what it was. That'd be, oh man. Ooh. Ooh. No, don't know about that. I mean, I liked West Side Story, but ooh. Anyone's thoughts on Dark Crystal and Age of Resistance? I love Dark Crystal. Dark Crystal is one of those movies that grew up watching, thought it was great. Haven't seen Age of Resistance, but I hear nothing but good things about it. I'll definitely be checking it out as soon as I can. The Bumblebee movie, I think, is kind of like a bit of a reboot, isn't it? Because doesn't it take place? Isn't it an alternate story? Or at least that's what I thought. And I heard that if anything, that might be the road they go down with the Bumblebee movie. So, did you see Arnold in Mortal Kombat as it's? No, I didn't know that they made an Arnold. That they made an Arnold downloadable character for Mortal Kombat. So, Still can't believe people wanted Shaggy to be in Mortal Kombat. Yeah, it's ridiculous. The whole Shaggy memes to me were... Yeah, I don't care about the Shaggy memes. They were trying to make that like the next like Chuck Norris thing, and nah, it just didn't land for me. I'm just like, yeah, they're dumb. Yeah, I would agree with that, Bowset. I would agree with that. Yeah, there hasn't really been a good one. Like, man, T2, it really set the bar high. It set the bar really high. So need to head to bed. Hey, well, thank you for being here, buddy. Thank you for being here, Scarlet Rider. Appreciate you joining the stream. We'll catch you. I'll catch you on the next, or I will catch you on the next one. Thanks, man. But thanks for being a part of the stream. But yeah, agree 100%. No good Terminator movie since T2. And the thing is, there's been, like, I thought Genesis had the potential. It had the potential that it could have been, but yeah, it fell short, and it's too bad. Being part, there was a Charizard Ranger. There was a rumor about there potentially that Hasbro is considering. Hasbro themselves have not confirmed that. They haven't confirmed that there's going to be like this Hasbro cinematic universe, but there was somebody that was saying that, who claims that they have ties to Hasbro, that there's talks about potentially having a Hasbro cinematic universe where they would have like crossovers, of course, with things like Power Rangers, where they would plan to cross over with Power Rangers and some of the other IPs that they have, which, you know, I don't see why not. I think you should do something like that while you have a hold of these IPs and breathe new life into them so they can make money for you with merchandise and all that stuff. And I think ideally that would be the best way to start, would be with Transformers and Power Rangers. I think those go hand in hand the best, and are in the public consciousness enough that you can really do something there that would be really great. So we'll see. I don't know what's going to happen. But I think that was speculation that people were talking about. I mean, I thought that, if anything, that's what the author of the article speculated on, that would be probably the place to start, right? With the new thing that they're trying to do with Transformers, like what they did with Bumblebee, that it takes place in this alternate universe. That would be a good jump point to start that from. So why not, you know? Let's see. Mortal Kombat. Yeah. Mortal Kombat. Your thoughts on Terminator and WWE 2K16? I didn't even know about that. He's a downloadable character in that? Ugh. If they come to have ties with Hasbro, then I'm taking this rumor very cautiously. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's really not to be. It's until Hasbro says something themselves officially. Just take it with a grain of salt. Now, I think that it would be in their best interest to do that. I don't see why you would sleep on an opportunity like that. You have all these different IPs, right? You have Power Rangers, you have Transformers, you have G.I. Joe, you have Micronauts, you have ROM, you have Mask. Whole slew of these properties that you can really put in some kind of cinematic universe. Why not? Why not do that? I mean, you know how much merchandise you'd be selling doing all that? So, let's see. You said, anyone else seen the RWBY Volume 7? I know people already have stopped watching and supporting Rooster Teeth at this point, but, well, I don't think everybody has. I know that there's a lot of people that still watch RWBY regardless of that. So, I've never seen it. It's been recommended to me. I haven't checked it out yet, though. What show would you want Hasbro to adapt into a Kamen Rider show? I think, Jeremy, the best show for them to start off with would be one that would be visually appealing, that the story is not too dark, but is good, that you could probably adapt into a fairly good story. And I think, and I hate to say it, but I think you would want to start off with a Kamen Rider that's very gimmicky. So I think that a show like Kamen Rider Gaim, as silly as some people might look at the fruit gimmick, would be one of those ideal shows, or maybe Double, maybe a show like even Kamen Rider Den-O, maybe. Those would be, I think, good shows to potentially adapt for an American audience. So something that has a gimmick that is sellable to an American audience. So if Transformers was rebooted, who would you want to direct and what style? Oh, in Generation 1, oh, man, you know, I think you would want, see, and it's hard to know these things because you would have to find a director that's been, I guess, kind of outspoken about these things, or that you know for a fact is like a total geek. The reason I think why the Sam Raimi movies, the first two especially, were so good, in my opinion, was because you had a guy in Sam Raimi that grew up a comic book nerd. He's a guy that grew up reading Spider-Man. So he understood the character and he understood how to make a movie where you watch it and you're just like, that's Spider-Man. You feel that that's Spider-Man. You know, people can say what they want about Tobey's performance, whether they liked it or didn't like it. The thing about the Spider-Man movies is that they feel like Spider-Man. They feel there's something good and wholesome that you feel there with that character in those movies that feels very familiar, if that makes sense. And I think that's why you need guys like that. You need guys like a Sam Raimi that grew up with these things. And Sam Raimi, I don't think necessarily grew up watching Transformers. By then, he was already probably in his. He was by the time Transformers came out, I'm sure he was probably like in his mid-20s around then. So it's not something he really grew up with, you know, earlier mid-20s. So you would need somebody like that grew up really knowing and understanding the characters so that they can portray them on the screen. I'm not saying that necessarily that's a surefire way to translate those on screen, because sometimes if somebody knows something a little too much, they could still, that doesn't mean that's going to translate over onto the big screen just as well, just because they're super familiar with the character. So, but I think it helps. I think it does help. So in the case of like Sam Raimi, I think it helped. So they would need to find somebody like that. He did a very good job of initiating Vic's voice. Sterling's here. I haven't heard the new Crow. I didn't even know that there was already. I knew that they had recast it. That's all I know. I wish some company would finish Mortal Kombat Legacy. Carrie came back as Shang Tsung, and I almost. Yeah. I heard about that. I heard he did not. I heard he also did the. I think he did the motion. I don't know if he did the motion capture work, but I know that they definitely motion captured his face and they used his voice. That's awesome. Oh, so he was a DLC. He was going to be in the WWE Hall of Fame. Triple H's Terminator theme entrance. Nice. Your thoughts on VG like Tekken and Soul Calibur? I like him. Manny is a huge Tekken and Soul Calibur fan. Yeah, he absolutely loves those games. Those are his two of his all-time favorite fighting game franchises. The Spider-Man choice is yep, be good. Oh, the NXT show was great. The NXT show was fantastic. For anybody that thinks, like, I see a lot of people that and I get it. I know a lot of people are disillusioned with WWE. And they feel that WWE is just, you know, it's garbage right now, and NXT is the only good thing they got going for them, which, you know, is probably true to a degree. Probably the general consensus for that would be yes, it is. But you know, they're still great performers on both Raw and SmackDown, even if they're not being utilized in the best ways. There's guys on both those brands that are still able to put on some really good matches, and there's still some guys that I think are doing fairly well in the way they're being treated. There's just other things that they got to get together. Now, I would agree with the general consensus that yes, NXT is the best product they got going right now in terms of how they're handling everything. The wrestling is great. The stories and everything makes sense. The way they're building up people, they're doing a fantastic job with it, I think, hands down. So to me, why wouldn't you put that show against AEW? I think that's a great way to kind of gauge where everything is at. Because if NXT is all that they need to compete against AEW, which I believe, honestly, in my opinion, might be an unpopular opinion, may not be, I honestly think that's all they need to compete with AEW. I really do. That'll give them an opportunity to kind of, I think, address the issues that they're having with the other two brands. That'll give at least hopefully some kind of room for improvement on these other brands when they see like, hey, look, our show that was supposed to be our developmental show, man, they're knocking these guys out of the park. So can you imagine if we just kind of address these other issues that we have, like seriously address all these other issues that we're having on our other two shows, where we could really be at, you know what I mean? So hopefully that's something good that'll come out of that. The general consensus from what I've seen online and what a lot of people that I've talked to are saying is that AEW shows seem to have a better production quality to it, but NXT had the better wrestling. So we'll see what happens from this point. But yeah, the wrestling was phenomenal. I was very happy to be there when Finn Balor came out. Like me and my buddy Eric, we freaked out when Finn Balor came out. And then when he said that he was NXT from as of now, that he was NXT, I was like, there we go. That's what we need. We need to see more of these guys that might have not done so well on the main roster. Just go ahead and bring them back to NXT where they could really have an impact. And that's huge for NXT, for Finn Balor to come back. And then, because prior to that, who else did you have come back? You had Tyler Breeze, who had been open about coming back to NXT for the longest time. That's something that he had been saying for a long time in interviews for like 2 years, I think, for at least the last 2 years or so. Him and Fandango were saying that Fandango, or however you want to call him, they had been openly saying that they would have loved to go back to NXT, and he finally got his way. And now I think you're going to see them really flourish. That's just a better place for them. Keep them there. You know what I mean? Just keep them there. For some guys, it's not about how big the crowds are they are performing in front of. It's about how they're being utilized. And obviously they're going to be utilized a lot better on the Gold brand, I think. And I think it's going to be the same with Finn Balor. I think he's going to be utilized a lot better in NXT than he was on the main roster. So Tobey Maguire is Spider-Man. Yeah. The new trailer for Volume 7 dropped. I'll have to check it out, even though I don't know anything at all about that show, but I'll check it out. MK Legacy was a Machinima live action. Oh, yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that Bowsette. Dan Southworth actually played the role of Kenshi in that series. Then Dan Southworth is the voice of Virgil from Devil May Cry. He's also the motion capture guy for Devil May Cry since part 3. So the Joker movie. Wait. So question: is the Joker part of the DCCU? No. I don't think it is. I don't think it is Charizard Ranger. I think, and I think that's something Todd Phillips said from the very beginning. It's its own standalone movie. It definitely doesn't fall not only in its tone or anything like that, but he was saying that it doesn't really fall in line with those. It's kind of its own little. It's kind of it's its own standalone thing. It's its own. It's in its own little kind of bubble there. It's not going to be a part unless, I mean, they could, I guess, if they really wanted to, they could, I guess, maybe incorporate it in, but I doubt it. I doubt they're going to do that. It really feels like a standalone piece. And if there is anything to follow up to it, if they do end up doing any follow-ups to it, it'll probably be part of a completely different universe. So it'll probably be more of a universe unto itself. Just think of Batman, the Batman Begins movies, right? They're kind of, they're a series unto itself. They don't really cross over into any of the other DC movies and things like that. And, the Superman movies to that degree as well. Like the way that DC was doing movies before, where they were just kind of within this bubble, where they just kind of existed within this own separate universe apart from all the other DC characters and things. So like Dream Bomb, who talks about tokusatsu in general. Oh, do you mean like would I ever have him on as a guest, Jeremy? Because I've spoken to Marco Satsu. Like me and him are friendly. We've had some brief discussions, I think, like online and stuff like that. And I've whenever I'm subscribed to his channel. I've hopped into some of his live streams in the chat whenever I've had time to hop on there. I mean, he doesn't really have a streaming schedule, so it's very rare, or at least as far as I know. But yeah, I mean, if he ever wanted to come on and just talk some tokusatsu, I'd be down for it. I'd be down to have him on, or if he wanted to have me on his stream, whatever, I'd be down to talk about Tokusatsu with him. He seems like a chill cat. Turn them heels and make them team up with. Oh man, I think Io Shirai as a heel is way better than Io Shirai as a face. I think she's been fantastic as a heel. I think she's been really good as a heel. Yeah, they really do, Devil Hunter Nero. They really do. And the fact that I think Vince just needs to leave that completely. He needs to leave that ball completely in Triple H's court. I think as long as he leaves it in Triple H's court and just lets Triple H do his thing, great things are going to happen. I really do believe great things are going to happen because Triple H is much more open to change than Vince is at this point. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious. I don't think that's something that's up for debate with people. I think most people would acknowledge that. I mean, I think Vince would probably even have to acknowledge that himself, although I don't, who knows? I don't know the kind of person Vince is, obviously, but Vince, he's become that guy. He's become the guy that he was pushing out of territories when he was changing the industry, 30, 40 years, 30 some odd years ago. So, I mean, you got to move aside. There's got to come a point in time where you got to step aside, let somebody else take the ball and run with it and see where they can go. 15 minutes until next stream. All right, cool. Actually, let me find his stream and I'll link it for y'all and we'll go ahead and not that I don't think Nick would even notice because there'll only be a few of us that are really going over, but we'll go ahead and kind of rate his stream, I guess. Let me find his stream here. Yeah, but I would love to. I saw that Nick on his stream the other day, he was talking about, he was talking a little bit more about potentially starting up his own show, starting up his own convention or things like that. So I did reach out to him and in DMs and talk to him, kind of briefly, not anything real in depth, just kind of like a kind of a conversation in passing. So, but I don't know if he took anything I said seriously, and that's not a knock on Nick, by the way. Like I said, because I'm sure he gets a ton of messages every day. So, I'm sure he's getting flooded all the time. So, but I did kind of reach out to him in regards to that, in regards to potentially doing a convention and things like that. She was in Lucha Underground? With Pentagon? I didn't even know she was in Lucha Underground. Yeah, look, Asuka was great as a heel. Asuka was fantastic as a heel. And I thought that that's when she was at her peak, honestly, because that's when she was like just destroying people. When she was like that destructive heel that, you're like kind of like Lesnar, right? Like the way they were doing Lesnar, where he's at his best, I think, when he's a heel, when he's just, doing like what he did on Monday Night Raw, when he's just being this reprehensible, just monster heel that is just destroying people. I think that's when he's at his best. So I think that they should do the same with Asuka again. And if it works for Kairi too, do it. Whatever it takes to get them over. Let me see. Yeah, it was, man. The quality of the matches last night were fantastic. And the thing is, matches always look better on TV. That's one thing that I realized when I went to my very first ever wrestling show was matches. The quality of matches look much, much better on TV, no matter what. That's just the way it is, because there's things you can do in the production to present it that way. It's much easier to mask any of the mistakes they make. But the thing is, the quality of wrestling in NXT is so good when you watch it live. There's going to be botches with wrestling, period. That's something that's unavoidable. There's always going to be botches, but the quality of the matches are so good in NXT. These people, these this talent that they have in NXT. They're so good. Their timing is so good. I mean, like the Matt Riddle, Adam Cole match yesterday, what a fantastic match. I mean, but those guys are just great anyways. I mean, their bad match would be probably on their worst day having a bad match. It would probably come across as like an average match, an average. And I mean, average, like probably in the good sense because of how good they are. Those guys are just fantastic. Those guys, especially, performing live, man, wow, that match was so good. I mean, I was as hyped for that match as I was when Tommaso Ciampa won against Aleister Black. That match was fantastic too. When Tommaso Ciampa and Aleister Black went at it, when he beat Aleister Black, I was there when he beat Aleister Black for the NXT belt. That match was so good. That's one of those. That's the when a match like that like really suspends your disbelief, where you completely forget about the fact that what you're watching is predetermined and choreographed or whatever, what have you. When it's that good that you forget that and you're just like into it like that, that is the hallmark of a really great match and just really great performers, period. When guys are able to take you there, when they're able to take you to that point where you're just like, oh my gosh, I really don't know what's going to happen. I thought I knew, but now I just really don't. Who's going to win? Who's going to win this match? So, yeah, Devil Hunter Nero. Yeah, I reached out to him about it. Devil Hunter Nero, kind of, threw a little bit of 2 cents on it. Hopefully, I would love to talk about it with him more. But like I said, I don't know that. I know that Nick's pretty busy, and like I said, I know he probably gets a ton of messages a day. So, we'll see. We'll see what happens. That'd be great. But one thing I will tell you for sure, Devil Hunter Nero, is I did put it out there for him. I was like, hey man, I would love to help if I can, if you'll have me. So, because I think there's, I think if you got people together that know a little something, I'm not saying like, I think first and foremost, guys like, the guys you want to talk to about stuff like that, of course, would be a guy like Stan Dolan, Erica McCord. They have knowledge in those areas too. So, and I'm sure Nick has probably, talked to Stan at length about this stuff offline. So, let's see, catch up with some questions. Stick on riddle me this. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, but you never know. I will say this: they're definitely. I love what they're doing with Matt Riddle, and you could tell that Matt Riddle will eventually become NXT champion. I mean, I think that's inevitable. He'll eventually be in that mix of becoming NXT champion. And I'm glad that they're taking their time with him to really, really build him up. He's a heck of a performer. And it's crazy because I used to watch Matt Riddle fight in the UFC. I was a fan of him in the UFC. Even though he was one of those guys that really was an undercard fighter, but he was a good fighter. He was a decent fighter. So I was a fan of him as far back as then. When he said that he was going to start doing wrestling, that definitely piqued my interest. I didn't get a chance to really follow him much on the independent scene, but I heard that he was doing well there. I would read the reports on how well he was doing in the independent scene and how well he was able to transition over into professional wrestling. So don't be surprised if you see more guys in wrestling do that. Like Cain Velasquez, another one. I don't know if you guys saw the match that Cain Velasquez had in AAA. His timing was fantastic. That's another guy that if he decides that he wants to fully transition over from MMA into professional wrestling, he'll have that Brock Lesnar type of career. Absolutely. Because he's already been a world champion in MMA. I could see him be a world champion in the WWE or whatever other wrestling organization he decides to go to. He is phenomenal. He is phenomenally athletic. Phenomenally. I know I'm getting tongue-tied there, but he's very athletic. Like the fact that, the stuff that he was pulling off, the fact that his timing was great. He was much more flexible than I expected him to be, considering the amount of injuries he's had to his legs. Pulling off a Hurricane Rana, a standing Hurricane Rana like that, like without skipping a beat, completely fluid. I was like, wow, if Cain decides to go full time with it, he'll have a fantastic career in wrestling. Fantastic career. What is BoomerCon? Is it a new con? That's kind of like the tentative title that Nick is saying for the show that he's potentially planning. Like I said, I've reached out to him about it. Hopefully, he could get more on his radar about it, but we'll see. Didn't Matt call out Goldberg on social media before and after Crown Jewel? I think he did. Well, Matt's done that a lot. I think he even, like, one of his first interviews that he had in WWE, he was talking about potentially facing off against Lesnar. So Seahawks won. Nice. Congratulations. That's cool, bro. It would be great if he just does think about a Drexel panel for 2 hours. Yeah, that would be funny. That would be funny, Devil Hunter Nero. That'd be great. Yeah. No, I'm talking when I talk about Nick, yeah, I'm talking about Rekieta. Yeah, Nick Rekieta. So yeah, he's the one I'm referring to when I say Nick. So yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with that if he does that or not. Like I said, I've put it out there. Hopefully we can get more on his radar about it. We'll see. Yeah, no problem, Charizard Ranger. Yeah, because I think that he might be on to a good idea. But you know, when you're starting off a convention, I will say this, and you know, I think somebody like Stan could attest to this. If he were here, he could probably attest to this. When you're starting off a convention, there's a lot of things that you have to consider when you do that. And one of the things I will say is that when you start a convention, there's a lot of people that have this misconception that you have to go big for a first year, and you really don't. The best thing to do when starting off a convention is start off very modestly. You want to have something that is, you want to have kind of a number in mind of how many people will show up. So I'm sure that a lot of people would support a convention like that, but at the same time, you don't want to go balls to the wall, because if you do that, that's how you lose money. There's things that you have to be very tactical about. So you want to do something that can fit. You know, you got to think of a number that is within reason. When you're setting up, when you're thinking about going to a video. Oh, Stan is here. Hey, what's up? What's up, Stan? You want to think of a number that's well within reason. Like for me, if I were Nick, and I think I might have mentioned this to him, and like I said, and I don't know how much attention you paid to him. If I were Nick, starting off as a first year show, and Stan, since you're here, maybe you could speak to this. If I'm thinking about a first year show, I would go to a hotel that has maybe a space that has maybe somewhere between 6,000 square feet to 8,000 square feet, just to start off for a first year show. Because in a space like that, and I mean, that would be like the main convention area where you would fit vendors, you would fit some of the guests, and of course, attendees are going to fit in that area as well. I think that would be a good starting space for a first year show, because usually with that, of course, they'll include some of the other rooms and stuff that you get. I think you'll probably get it at a reasonable rate too. Because I mean, the higher square footage you go, of course, it's going to be more. Location is also key too. You got to look at where you're at. To me, from what I've seen, and again, Stan, I know will probably speak better to this than I will. For us, like when we decided upon a location for Ranger Stop, we looked at somewhere, okay, well, where's a good area where we'll be very visible? Next to a major highway that gets a lot of traffic, but also has a lot of things around it where people go. So we chose across from Universal Studios Orlando. And there's another reason why we did this. Tourists come to Florida a lot. It's a very good tourist destination, is Universal Studios Orlando. So when you think about people wanting to maximize their vacation, if they're coming in from out of state, you want to entice them more. So our idea was that, okay, well, now we can entice people to come even more, because we're literally right across from Universal Studios Orlando. It's within walking distance. All you have to do is cross the street. There you are. Okay. So now people have more of an incentive to come, because they can say, hey, look, I've never been to Universal. Now I could, I'll consider a vacation. I'll go to the convention. I'll go across the street to Universal Studios. And then on top of that, there's also a lot of places to eat around there. There's a bunch of different restaurants. So there's places to eat. You know, the hotel is right across the street from Universal Studios. So you're adding more for people to do. But again, you don't want to go too big on the spot, because if you project numbers, right? You say, well, I'm expecting, I don't know, X amount of, let's say 2,000 people to show up for the weekend. That's a good goal in mind. But what if those people don't show up? I mean, for me, it's probably better to have a space that you can fill up, because the way people look at it, right? If you get a space that's a little bit smaller and you exceed those expectations, that's not a bad thing, because then you're looking at the space, as long as you're still within kind of fire code, because people are going to be going out throughout the weekend. As long as you're not at a point where you're necessarily breaking fire code, which it's kind of hard to do that with people coming in and out all the time and having other things going on throughout the course of the weekend. But it's better for the place to be full than get this whole big, large space, which I've seen this happen plenty of times, where convention owners will book a space that is way too big for where they're at. Like, I've seen second year shows book these spaces that are like 15,000 square feet. And I'm just like, you're not there yet. So now you have this huge building, which has plenty of space, but that space ends up being wasted. And the perception from people that are going to the show is, wow, it was dead throughout the weekend. Even though they might have outsold tickets from the year before, that's the perception people have because of how much space is being wasted. So let's see. One thing Akon is doing is dial back the attendance and cap it. That way they can more effectively go back to the fundamentals. Yeah, and that's what you need to do with stuff like that. Nick's getting started. Yeah, we'll be over there in a minute. Let me go ahead and link Nick's stream so we could go ahead and tackle his stream. Yeah, be sure to say Toy Bounty Hunter's raid over there. But yeah, Stan, we need to shake Nick down, man. We need to shake him down. But I think you should at least shake him down. Drop the knowledge on him. But that's one of the things, though. Like I said, it's one of the pitfalls when people kind of they book a place that's too big for where they're at, and by that I mean where they're at in terms of getting people over there. So, but we'll go ahead and end it with that. Let's go ahead and start rating Nick's stream. Thank you guys so much for joining me, Stan. Hopefully, can have you on sometime soon, and we could talk. Yeah, it looks like Nick already started, so I'll catch you guys over there.